Recording for the Okay. Well, welcome to our industry call. I'm Tara Shannon with the Ottawa Festival Network. I'm so happy that you're here with us and also very happy to be presenting this super important topic with our community partners here today. So just a quick reminder for our own members that we have our Fest Connect event this Thursday, April 3rd from 5 to 7. So come and join us for our 5 à 7. Where we can just hang out and just talk all things festivals and get ready for the big season that's coming up for us. And this is a really hot topic for all of us, sustainability in general and all levels of where we need to see sustainability so that we can have a thriving ecosystem for festivals and special events. I am thrilled to be here with our industry partners, Ottawa Tourism, who are going to present the industry call today here for you. So I'm going to hand it over to Phil.
Good afternoon, everybody. Bonjour, bon après-midi, et quoi. I'm just going to start my presentation and hope everybody can see it. There we go. So as just was mentioned, you're going to be on camera. So do not forget that this session is going to be recorded. My name is Phil Novotny. I'm the Community Engagement Specialist for Ottawa Tourism, and together with Tracy, we represent Ottawa Tourism today, trying to give us some insight, tips, and tricks on sustainability, together with our other co-presenters today. If you do have any questions, please make sure to use the chat to raise your hand, and there will be definitely plenty of time as well at the Q&A at the end. And the slides as well, like our presentation materials, will be made available afterwards. And if you may indulge using a pun from your industry, enjoy the show. To begin, a land acknowledgement. The Ottawa region is the traditional and unceded territory of the Anishinaabe Algonquin, who have stewarded, traveled, and inhabited these lands for millennia. We acknowledge the enduring presence of all First Nations, Métis, and Inuit on this land. I would like to start with a quick dive into our strategy. We value sustainability is the theme, which as part of our destination stewardship plan is guiding our sustainability efforts. I promise I will make it really quick with regards to strategy, but we have two documents. The left one is the 10-year vision, the stewardship plan, followed by a more in-depth, shorter review, the strategic plan, which was refreshed just last autumn, particularly with a focus on sustainability. Probably most of you will know some sort of definition, but just to kind of give you a very short definition, the definition used by the United Nations from 1992 from the Rio Declaration is really trying to focus on making sure that this generation is living within the means to make sure that the next generation is not impeded on. And this definition of sustainability is really another term for prosperity, planet, and people, or triple bottom line. But it is always centered around it's as much the economy as it is the environment, as much as the social aspect, which we have to consider in everything we do. So how does the destination stewardship plan translate that? You can see on the one hand, we have the net zero destination as a target recognizing the climate crisis and the need for reducing our greenhouse gas emissions. But one way particularly how to focus on that is the clean and circular economy. And one of our co-presenters, Alexia, will talk about this, and JF as well. And the other aspect as well is on the social side with regards to quality of life for the locals, as well as accessibility and DEI efforts, which we want to recognize. In concrete terms, breaking this down into the strategy, our strategic goal E4 regarding promoting environmental stewardship in tourism has some of the actions selected here. And I'm going to contrast them with concrete achievements which we have had over the last years and actually until this very second. In terms of partnerships, we have been able to develop a very solid foundation with 3 nonprofits in Ottawa here. We call them social impact programs. And if you think about large convention centers, major events, their event planners can book basically an activator. It could be, for instance, with Forêt Capital Forest to go to a forest tour, to plant actual trees, or even actually have a culinary experience whilst leaving a legacy during a conference. You can see that this is as well for the indigenous cultural and also the accessibility sector possible. The second action regarding promoting and supporting eco-friendly tourism is a lot framed by our Global Destination Sustainability Index. It's a long word, but what it basically is a framework for helping us to benchmark our efforts, but also actually giving us like a guidance tool where we can actually both as Ottawa Tourism, but also across the destination, help businesses become more sustainable. If you haven't heard of it, we're ranking 5th now for the 2nd year across North America. So there's definitely a lot of like good work which has been achieved, but also a lot more to do across these 70+ indicators. This one is regarding supporting local businesses to adopt sustainable practices. So Jeff will talk a lot more about that. But you can see a lot of happy faces from these chefs and the kitchen crew, and this little thermometer collecting an incredible amount of surplus food. And if you want to take one number away, as of today, 136,000 meals have been saved and donated to community organizations. And GF will explain that, how this incredible effort within 10 months actually is possible in the first place, with 17 partners across our destination. Monitoring is obviously key. We are using, just for our own efforts, a green step to track our own sustainability efforts. And we got a silver certification, which is coming up for renewal. And the last bit I would like to mention is a very dedicated point, which has taken a lot of effort to produce, is the Responsible Events Guide. You might think at the first glance this is not too relevant for you, but I think there's a lot of like important takeaways. What this guide really does is trying to provide a lot of like practical tips, but also like resources to make your event more sustainable. So examples are, for instance, checklists, decision trees, directories, and a lot of other resources. So do let me know if you're interested. I'm happy to share that with you. So having spoken specifically about the strategy, I'm now flipping over to the actual tips in terms of what we have come across. And what I'm going to talk about later is really what we actually have taken from Ottawa. So these are things which are already in place within Ottawa. So that's the exciting part. This is not somewhere else, but this is really like close to the heart and to the place. Any event can be sustainable. And as I had mentioned, people, power, planet. If you have this triple bottom line integrated into your festival, that makes it not only great, but also a sustainable festival. When we actually planned this webinar today, we actually had a really good conversation with Bluesfest, and a big shout out to them for having taken the time to chat with us. But one of the really important takeaways is strive for better, but not perfection, because it's very easy just to really try to do too much. So I think that's an important one. We know every year we can do better, but within the means and the resources we have. A tip is as well, there are obviously a ton of tools out there, and I quickly want to introduce you to one. This is an impact and prioritization tool. Some of you might know it as well in a different fashion from financial planning and strategy development, but basically you have on those two axes the impact you would like to achieve and also the cost. And let's say you have 4, 5, 6 different initiatives and try to figure out which one to do. This model allows you to identify which one is sort of like low-hanging fruit. For instance, if the impact is high, but the cost low, or which ones are maybe like too expensive and have actually a rather limited yield. So a very good example is obviously LED lights. Most of you will probably have heard of that, that maybe there's a little bit of a high upfront cost, but because over the lifetime of the material, they are really actually providing a very good and also fairly fast return on investment, and therefore is a high impact in terms of reducing energy, but also costs, and at the same time, like reducing those costs. That impact can be for anything. So you can choose whether it's carbon emissions, it could be water, could be community impact, could be plastic, and so forth. With regards to other tips as well, in terms of resources, Ottawa Tourism really tries to make sure that where we provide both training and resources, we try to provide like practical, low barrier solutions. We understand there's 100 pages sometimes to read through a report, and not everybody has the time, or probably most of us don't have the time. So what we have designed for that specific purpose is a capacity building and training tool. So there's a heads up. If you're interested in that and you're a member of Ottawa Tourism, in autumn, there will be a sustainability training cohort coming up addressing exactly that. And just to give like an idea what that looks like, we are at the moment recruiting trainees until this Friday for an accessibility-oriented membership training course. It is very low-key, as I said, with regards to the resource effort, an hour per month roughly, a little bit more in some months, only like for 6 months. And you do need to be a member. And if you are not a member yet, but you're interested, no worries. There will be a second cohort coming up, and it's definitely a good reason to join Ottawa Tourism. And there are other benefits as well, apart from training up your own staff, increasing your accessibility features of your festivals. The last tip I'm going to throw out as well is with regards to universities and eager volunteers. They are there. There's a link which you can click on if you get the materials regarding the Ottawa Youth Community Service Learning Program, whether it's planning, whether it's research, whether it's developing your future volunteer and even workforce. They can be incredible partners, and many of you are charities or nonprofits, and that's obviously community organization connecting with community organization. So speaking of concrete examples in terms of what actually have we found where sustainability is in action, regarding waste, many of you try to recycle, try to work with either like the venue, respectively, like your waste contractors, and that's not always easy. And obviously, if you have thousands of people, one challenge is trying to make sure that actually contamination doesn't happen. So where you can integrate volunteers because they can help you on the site to remedy some of the issues regarding contamination. GF will talk about our a la carte program, which is recovering food surplus in a minute, but it is an excellent way as well to avoid food waste. Water stations, many of you have probably tried or tested it as well with regards to the ability to reduce plastic bottles and any other waste. And if you decide, for instance, to not have plastic bottles, respectively, paper cups, if you have canned drinks, that allows you not only to reduce your environmental impact because you can easily recycle and collect those cans, but particularly with like beer cans, the deposit actually allows you to raise funds. And in the case of Blues Fest, we know that, for instance, $20,000 have been secured from this measure and get donated, and it's an incredible boost as well for the volunteers to be part of this engagement and this activity. On the transportation side, if you can encourage folks to cycle, that resolves a lot of headaches in terms of getting around, reduced noise, obviously fares as well. And again, Blues Fest, for instance, has like Valley Bike parking in partnership with Bike Ottawa, up to 1,000 bikes a night. So that's not a small undertaking, and has worked excellently for years. Obviously, don't forget, we have OC Transpo, and there are options as well where free ridership is possible. So talk to OC Transpo when you organize a festival. And I put in a picture of the LRT because I must say, I haven't heard anything about OC Transpo in a while, which I think is excellent news in terms of it's moving. Accessibility is definitely one of the aspects as well I want to highlight as part of sustainability, because we talk a lot about like environmental aspects, but make sure as well, for instance, learning from these festivals, which have been able to provide that extra stage room with a companion, which can then actually watch like a festival from a well-centered stage. American Sign Language is something maybe you would want to integrate as well, even if it's only like for a selection of shows, not all of them. And also thinking about emergency evacuation, right? It obviously makes a difference if you're in a wheelchair, if you have mobility issues, integrating that into evacuation routes is always like a very useful exercise, which we have come across. On the economy side, and this is the last point I'm talking about, you have purchasing power, which means you can actually really influence a lot, whether it's your procurement policies, whether it's like tenders. You can prioritize, for instance, supplies which use certain eco-friendly materials, but also use your sourcing contracts to actually provide that guidance or direction, or even like that nudge and push to make the suppliers like more sustainable. One example as well we have come across is, for instance, where hotels are required, for instance, book only rooms where certification, for instance, with Green Key Global is provided. That makes it easier because you can quickly look that up and at the same time benefit from that. And the last point is as well, we have come across, which is quite interesting, is when thinking about the economy, it's not only about like your own revenue line, it's also in terms of how can you actually have an economic impact across the city. And that also means actually boosting smaller businesses. Blues, for instance, as an example, can obviously attract larger multinational sponsors. But how do you actually do that with regards to local businesses? And for instance, the actual lowered fees for sponsorship packages to still allow local businesses to get on those big screens as well. So having talked about the La Tablée de Chef, it's a real pleasure for me to introduce GF. He's an amazing person I got to know like a year ago. The amount of energy he has put into this organization is incredible. And as I mentioned, 136,000 meals saved locally. That is really something to talk about. So without further ado, GF, the mic is yours.
Thank you, Phil. Yes, this has been great. I founded the organization back in 2002 in Montreal. without recovering any food until really 2005, where we started recovering the food. We had the opportunity to recover the food at the Bell Center for a Montreal Canadiens game. And I was introduced to the president of the Montreal Canadiens at the time to look at the food that was put in the suites and the lounge and restaurants and test our program and what we had in mind for it. So I was able to test it in this venue that was the biggest food venue in the city. And basically, it ended up working. It could have killed it right there, but when you're given that sort of opportunity, you just grab it and prove that what you had in mind and what you dreamed about, because I did dream about making this happen, that it was possible. And the idea was not to recreate food recovery, because food recovery already existed. It was just maximizing the amount of food that we are able to recover, and also taking that kind of reflection on what type of food are we allowed to recover, and kind of engaging into that conversation. Are we doing enough? Are we engaging into recovery of food that is not currently recovered, and agencies that might not be comfortable in recovering or accepting those types of food donation? This is really where I wanted to be active in that field. And so I come from the hotel industry. I studied in hotel management at ITHQ in Montreal, and then went on to work for Fairmont Hotels as regional director of sales for Eastern Canada, so selling the Fairmont Chateau Laurier all the way to the Manoir Richelieu in Charlevoix. I did that for a couple of years out of the Montreal office, and then went on to work for Marriott Hotels as director of sales and marketing in the Old Montreal. Very successful at that property, and then went on to open hotels in Montreal for the group ownership group that were franchising Marriott properties across the province of Quebec. In 2005, I decided I was leaving the industry, but keeping it really close. I knew I was going to work in a different way with the industry, engaging them in food donation and into this idea of putting together a food recovery program. So by that first experience at the Bell Center, we then it triggered other people and gave us some sort of credibility to say, okay, if there's doing this at the Bell Center, it must be interesting to look at it. So fast forward, we are now working in more than 350 establishments across Canada, looking at the whole hospitality sector, from hotels that have convention space to convention centers, convention space like the Rogers in Ottawa, but also sports venues like the Bell Center, like the TD Place and Canadian Tire Center that both join in to this program. And what has been different with this through the year we've just had together, and the success that we've embraced, is the timing. There's a lot of pressure coming from the general public on wanting to do more on sustainability goals, the SDG, corporate social responsibility being more in the priority kind of line of priorities. And also that we've been pushing for this for more than 20 years. We've been hitting that nail for 20 years. So at some point we could have been discouraged long ago. But when we had the opportunity about a year ago, a little bit less than a year, a little bit more than a year ago, in Gatineau, I was invited to Destination Canada, and that's where Mary and Phil were attending this conference on sustainability, and I had the chance to sit down with Lisa Frula and speak about the work of La Tablée to all different destinations across the country. And Mary, I caught Mary's attention, and Mary reached out after from Tourism Ottawa and said, "JF, why don't we do this destination wide?" And I'm like, "Are you serious?" Because it's the first time I've been offered to look at a whole destination and work with DMC to engage all the members, either hotels or venues or caterers, or different spaces where we could and even events. So basically, had the opportunity to, if I would have invited everybody that Mary and Tourism Ottawa invited at that first lunch and learn, probably on 20 people, 2 or 3 would have shown up, maybe 5. But the whole 20 people showed up, and they even took their executive chef to that first lunch and learn. And it was magical. For me, it was kind of, thank God, it's finally setting, and people were so responsive, so positive about this. They were asking questions, and then we got them on board all together. And the fact that we could answer all the questions and get that kind of gray zone that I was talking about in terms of what type of food, doing a full assessment on each property and saying you might be already doing food recovery, but you might not be doing everything that you can. And we're not there to point fingers. We're not there to say that you're not working well. We're there to optimize. And really, it's looking at how we can really come together and bring this to all the other places that have not joined yet into the program. And just to give you maybe a quick vision about this is, we work on the F1 Grand Prix over the weekend, and we work differently in a hotel setting where we really coach the team to self-manage the food recovery. So we do the initial training and assessment so that the program is functional and it works and it's self-managed. And we do the connection with the community partner, depending on where is more proper to be linked with. So we create that connection with many community partners. On the event side, we really like at F1 or at the President's Cup at Royal Montreal that we did. We do Osheaga. We do many events. We're going to do the Jazz Festival in Halifax next summer. Is really, we come in with a team, and we blend in with the team of caterer that has been chosen, or the concession, or anybody that's working on the food and beverage for that specific function. Crew, feeding the crew for any live shows. We just finished a tour with Our Lady Peace across Canada, and we were able to recover in all the venues. So basically, is really to maximize, and through Tourism Ottawa, we have shown that we can do this destination wide, and really happy to talk with any one of you that might have questions about how can we make this happen, and if you've not already heard about this, how can we help you to look at your event or your venue and make it happen. Thank you, Phil, for the opportunity, and thank you, everyone, for listening.
Thank you, Jeff. It is always like an amazing story to hear in terms of like how you started and how far we have come, and particularly you have come with your organization. So kudos to all the work you do and you're going to do. And I just know there will be a lot more happening and a lot more meals saved, which is obviously the most important part of this journey. So speaking of a different element of the circularity, Alexia from Reuse Ottawa, I think you're going to start your own presentation if it all works well.
Yeah, I can share my screen. Where is it? Hi everyone, I'm Alexia. I work for the Circular Innovation Council. So we're a not-for-profit organization, and we operate all across Canada. We design and implement programs and pilot programs around the circular economy. One of our programs is called Reuse Ottawa, and it's a collaborative reusable food container program to eliminate single-use packaging in the food service industry in Ottawa. So we partnered with some of Canada's leading grocery retailers, so Walmart, Metro, Sobeys, Farm Boy, as well as the federal government and the city of Ottawa to bring this program to life. So they are our inaugural pilot members, and we've also partnered with Reusables.com, which is a tech company that allows us to track the containers, the reusable containers that are borrowed and returned for our program. Gate Gourmet is our sanitization facility, so they're located just next to the airport, and they wash the containers for us. And Snelling, which is a part of Bunzel, is our distribution partner. So they come and pick up the containers when they're used, and they bring the new containers, the wash containers, to our participants. So what is a collaborative reuse pilot? So by collaborative, we mean that we are open to working with any organization that is interested in trialing reusable containers. So we've launched the program in the fall of 2024. For now, we've only had restaurants and grocery retailers, as I've said, but we are starting to work with schools, with institutions, and because I'm presenting the program here today, we're also very open to working with festivals and events as they use a lot of single-use packaging. Now, what do we mean by a shared pool system for reusable food containers? So here, shared pool means two different things. The first one is that our containers that we have, and I'll show them to you after, they're not for sale. They are part of a service that we offer. So we offer those containers, and they need to be in movement within our program to make sense environmentally. So I'll give you an example so you can understand better. So a customer might take one of our containers, they might borrow it at a restaurant A, then they will be able to return it at a restaurant B. This container is now dirty, it's used, so it'll be picked up, sanitized by our partner, and then redistributed into our system for a restaurant C, for instance, as part of their new weekly order. So that's what we mean by shared pool system, because our containers need to be in constant movement to make sense environmentally for the program to work. And they're also containers that are shared across all participated locations. So a few elements of context. If you didn't know, in Canada, there's only 9% of the plastic waste that is recycled. The rest goes to landfill or is lost into the environment. So that should show how urgent the situation should need to change. As I said, we offer Reuse Ottawa is a solution that is a container as a service. So we offer the containers to any participating organization that is willing to trial them. If our containers do not fit the needs of that organization, that's perfectly fine. We also position ourselves as a convener. So our organization has been existing in the circular economy industry for a long time. We have very good relationships with other reuse service providers, and we are able to source other containers if needed for your needs, because we understand that restaurant, grocery stores might not operate the same way as festivals and might not have the same needs. So for a program like ours to work citywide, we really need to be working on collaboration and cooperation, and that's why we are able to also source those containers for you. A few words on how it works for our restaurants, which might not need to be the same for festivals, but we are deposit free. That means that customers can just borrow a container for free at our participating locations. They have 14 days to return them to any participating location. Then, as I said, they're picked up every week, they're sanitized, and they're redistributed into the system. The way it works with restaurants is that customers can borrow those containers with their phone or through the program's app. And we also have an incentive program in place to reward users or customers rather, that use the containers the most. And that has been working really well to encourage behavior change and to encourage them to keep using the containers and not just one time. So those are the containers, small bowl, 3-compartment clamshell, large bowl. We have this smart bin that is in our grocery stores, and what we call this simple bin in our restaurants, just because they have a much lower volume of containers that they offer. So those are quick photos of containers in store. And I also wanted to share some of our early successes since we only launched the program back in October. Just to give you a baseline, so for reusable programs to work, normally you need to have an 80% return rate. The return rate being the number of containers that are returned by the customers. And we've been very happily surprised to have a return rate that's actually exceeding the 90%. So depending on the week, we can have 93%, 94, 95. We've never been, I think, lower than 91, which is really good. And yeah, as I said, we've been implementing this incentive program, and that's been working really well as well to promote the program. Now onto the festival part of my presentation. So why bring reusable containers to festivals? The narrative is really, it's the same as for restaurants and grocery stores. It will allow you to reduce your waste and to lower your costs. So reduce your waste in terms of single-use packaging and your costs in terms of waste management, but also the cost of the packaging, depending on what packaging you use. If it's plastic, if it's compostable, the costs are different, but there will be a waste reduction and cost reduction. Bringing reusable containers into festivals can also introduce reuse to larger audiences than we would normally have if we're only partnering with grocery stores and restaurants. It's a way to promote new ways to consume, to have more dining options and drinking options that are a bit more eco-conscious. And it can also create a more enjoyable experience for those participants. It can also align with your sustainability goals if you have any, and attract eco-conscious sponsors. That's something that we've noticed just because we're a membership-based organization. So we see that the private sector has been growing more and more interest into the circular economy those last years. And finally, it provides also a measurable impact. So we are able to track the single-use reduction, the waste avoided, and we can just provide generally like data for you if you need for your performance regarding sustainability. I forgot to say as well, but for this third point, for this second point, encouraging behavioral change, that's also really, that should also be complemented by the appropriate communication strategy and signage that can play a very big role. I don't know if I still have time, Phil. How am I doing in terms of time?
I was just texting you 2 minutes.
Okay, well, maybe I'll stop here then with this case study because I think it's an interesting one, and I'm happy to take any questions afterwards. So I wanted to show this this example of a reusable cup program that was implemented in the city of Aarhus in Denmark, and actually the adoption of the program was very slow, with only a 25% return rate to start with. And I thought it was interesting that this program partnered with a festival in the summer, where the organizers agreed to offer the cups for all the food vendors present on the festival. It was a 1-week festival, and that resulted in 100,000 cups that were returned. And after the festival was over, the return rate for the pilot program reached 88% and has been at that percentage ever since. So I thought it was interesting to see how the role and the complementarity as well of introducing reusable containers, both like in day-to-day environments like grocery store, restaurants, etc., but also in environments like festivals that are happening in summer, that can last longer with a wider audience. And it can really complement a citywide reusable program like it has in Denmark. So that was my case study. And I think I'm done for my 10 minutes, but I have a lot of things to say on reuse, and I'd be happy to take any questions afterwards.
Thanks so much, Alexia. As you say, like we can talk about this a lot more, but unfortunately we have only our time slots. So we talked about like specific examples, and Tracy will now close up in terms of what Ottawa Tourism has as an opportunity for funding opportunities, but also she will dive in a couple of specific examples as well, which she has come across. And if you haven't met Tracy yet, she's definitely a good one to keep in your contact book. So Tracy, without further ado, I think the slide is yours, and you just on the next slide.
Perfect. Thank you, Phil. Yes, for those of you I see a lot of, I can't see you all on the screen right now, but thank you guys for jumping on for this one. So next slide, please, Phil. So this might be a reminder for a lot, but for those that are new to this, these industry calls, I oversee our Destination Development Fund, which is really a program that is designed for the development of new tourism product and experiences in our city that will really generate a measurable increase in overnight visitation to enhance our destination offering. As far as the program goes, it is funded by our 5% municipal accommodation tax, which is really why the projects that we look to support really have to look to drive new overnight visitation in order for us to keep replenishing that funding pot. In addition, with the Destination Development Fund, our funding will support up to 50% of a project's eligible project expenses, not up to 50% of a project's total costs, which is why if you go to the next slide, Phil, I will talk a bit about the program's overview. So there are 5 different project streams. Obviously, for the purpose of this call, festivals and events is one of those 5 project streams. We also have 5 new priority areas for 2025 and sort of beyond. And any project has to meet it has to meet more than one of those priority areas. The process is also sort of a 3-step process. It begins with you reaching out to me via phone, via email, at an OFN Fest Connect industry event. And really it begins with a checklist. Then we sort of have an exploratory call. Then we move on to a phase 1 statement of intent, which is really giving a high level overview of the project. And then it goes into more detail in the phase 2, where it's really about the impact, the merit, and the viability of your project to live on in your festival for reoccurring years. We do not sort of try and do one-offs. The project that we're looking to support is when you're ready to expand and diversify your offerings to continue on as a regular part of those festival offerings. Obviously, within our DDF guide, there are eligible types of projects, the organization's eligibility is within the guide, as well as the eligible types of projects and eligible project costs. However, those types of projects and those types of eligible project costs are really meant across all 5 project streams, which really stresses the importance of that pre-eligibility checklist, that exploratory call, and then really that phase 1 that all applicants go through. And then, of course, because the fund is funded by the municipal accommodation tax, it is limited to projects that are within the City of Ottawa wards. Next slide. So our objectives are really around creating new and innovative destination offerings, which will result in an increased overnight visitation and positive word of mouth. We're also looking to develop the destination by creating new experiences that will be recurring, permanent, and or make a momentous impact on conversations about Ottawa in our key markets, whether that's through social media or again through word of mouth. We also try to create and enhance our tourism offer to build greater visitor experiences. And we want to create opportunities to build the tourism sector capacity, engagement, collaboration, and investment. Next slide. New objectives now, which sort of gets into this topic, is really demonstrating sustainable, accessible, and inclusive initiatives, as well as demonstrating the long-term benefits to Ottawa and the surrounding area. Next slide. So for 2025, we did some new priority areas, shoulder season tourism development. And if you go into our DDF guide on our webpage, there's a lot more information that sort of takes you through what we define as shoulder season tourism development. Really, that's sort of October through April, we maybe include May in there. So it's because it's sort of the kickoff to our festival season. Downtown revitalization, tourism development. Again, as a destination, we understand that between the Byward Market and the downtown core, that were seriously affected for, I guess, the past 5 years. We recognize that we really want to revitalize that area in particular. Indigenous tourism development, accessible tourism development. As Phil had said, not only this year are we doing a whole accessibility cohort, but we sort of piloted a tourism accessibility fund in 2024 that as a result will be how you can access it in 2025 is by being a part of this larger accessibility cohort. And then the last one is, of course, sustainable, diverse, equitable, and inclusive tourism development. Next slide. So focusing on that one, how we've sort of defined that priority area are really initiatives that are in alignment with what Phil sort of covered at the beginning of this presentation, really helping us to ensure the long-term prosperity of our destination. We're also committing to taking a triple bottom line approach to the development and management of tourism in our destination. So really looking at one that reduces the impact of tourism on our planet, enriches the lives of the people who work in our industry, and also generates a fair profit for our stakeholders, partners, and the community we serve. Next slide. So with that, we've also added not only those new priority areas, but then a couple of new questions in and around accessibility, but also for the purpose of this call around the impact. And we're asking our applicants to really describe the measures in place to address environmental sustainability, as far as an example. So we're using waste reduction, waste diversion, responsible procurement, circular economy initiatives, and then event impact measurements. We also like to give tips with all of our questions. So next slide, Phil. Tip, Phil. We again reiterate that we're aligning with our stewardship plan, taking the triple bottom line, and we're really asking the applicants to really show how their project is going to meet these initiatives. Next slide. So what we wanted to do is we took you through sort of examples in each of the different areas at the beginning of the presentation with Phil, but then what I wanted to do is with a lot of the festivals that we're working with currently, they're showing us sort of the vast amount of initiatives that they're taking. So we just wanted to give you sort of some pre-festival, on-site, and then post-festival considerations above and beyond what Phil spoke to earlier. So what we really liked was competitive RFPs that are circulated to suppliers to ensure equal access to the spend on suppliers and concessions, as well as equipment rentals, accommodation support, etc. Carbon footprint that's consciously reduced by sharing international programming with other Canadian festivals, really ensuring that there's a little carbon footprint as possible, so sort of routing musicians, touring artists around, and better making use of their time. And then really looking at developing sustainable event apps that are really going to reduce paper consumptions for schedules, maps, tickets, postering, obviously, sometimes to a certain extent. Next slide. As far as on-site, above and beyond what Phil sort of listed before, event signage being made from recycled materials, sustainable LED lights for all stage productions and site lighting, or in this case, an illuminated black light boardwalk experience. And then also sustainable transportation by setting up an Uber geofence to make pickup and drop off easier for attendees and with much less vehicle idling. And then last slide. So post-event areas of measurement. So again, part of our final reporting process for any of our successful Destination Development Fund recipients are really around the environment. We want to see waste produced, reduce, reuse, recycle initiatives reflected, and then if there was any public transit usage. And then as far as business practices go, are they sending out surveys and are they including questions around sustainability initiatives in their surveys, asking for formal feedback from their stakeholders, as well as doing a SWOT analysis and looking ahead to next year's and when they can do that. Next slide. And then here we go. Here are a bunch of references and then questions. Thank you, guys.
I can see the first question. So firstly, thank you, Tracy, for talking us through both the finances and the many options there are with regards to enhancements. I see the first question from Patrick. How can we get on preferred vendor list for events?
Patrick, are you referencing the OFN supplier directory?
Well, basically, I represent a company that's really eco-friendly in our packaging and reusable bags and fair trade products. And I was just wondering if there's a list that would be adequate for us to like be part of, or just throw our name out there to help out in the different festivals and events in the Ottawa region.
Absolutely. Yes. Thank you for the question. I'll pop my email address in the chat. And then if you can send me an email with the information about your company, what we can do is include you in our supplier directory at OFN and then walk you through how that works so that you can get your messaging out to our membership.
Well, thank you so much.
Welcome.
And Patrick, from the tourism angle as well, feel free to look into whether it's worthwhile having a membership for you as well from our side, because we have retailers as much as other small businesses related to the event sector, for instance. So there might be something as well which you're interested in, and I'll pop later in a link as well into the chat.
Yeah, I'll share my company website as well. You can go see a little bit what we do,
Sure.
and see the products that we offer, and maybe something will just put on the light bulb in somebody's head and reach out to us, right?
No, that's great and appreciate it.
Thank you.
Does anybody else have any specific questions for Alexia or GF maybe with regards to their circularity aspects? Lisa, yes.
Sorry, I didn't know there's a way to do it electronically, but
Just caught you.
I guess obviously, I mean, the food recovery program sounds interesting, and I would love to talk more. And I guess every festival has different needs, and it would be very much customized depending on the type of event and the food offerings there. So I guess if you're interested in learning more, what's the first step? Getting in touch. And then
reach out to
going
us.
from there from Jean-Francois, or is there another good first contact?
Yeah, we can reach out to us. You have my email. I'll organize a call with my food recovery team. We do an initial assessment with you on your event. We look at site map, locations, and like if you have a mix of like a catering area for crew, and then if you do have like concessions and stuff. We work different ways. We sometimes even for smaller like festivals, or like when we used to do the just for laugh festival, it was only food trucks, and we would organize with the promoter of the festival. We would organize like a 10 by 10 tent with a table, the containers, everything is there, self-managed. And we would go previous to the festival starting, we would go food truck to food truck, talk with all the operators, give them a one pager with like kind of the training and the location of the two-door glass fridge that was there. And every day there was a community organization coming to check out and empty the fridge as needed. So there's really different ways. And then when you look at the F1, and F1 is 15 people every day, double shift for 4 days, and we recover like 16 tons of food in 4 days. We feed 100,000 people,
I've been. It is a huge event.
Yes.
It's amazing. Yeah. Okay, cool. Yeah. So that sounds super interesting. So yeah, I'd love to learn a little more. Our event, Hope Volleyball Summerfest, is a 1-day festival. So that would be different than a multi-day event. So but there are a lot of food recovery, potentials there. So it'll be interesting.
And
to learn a
when
little
I
more.
talked about the assessment, is we work also with the food inspection agency So we know the regulation. When we do the assessment, we know exactly, like if you share with us the menu or everything, like the menu items, or if we go through a concession list of menus and stuff like that, we can tell them already what we could recover or not, you know? Yeah.
Okay, cool. Well, I'll look for in the contact information will be provided to us in an email after.
Yes, I'm sure. Yes.
Okay, perfect. Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Jeff, you brought up a really interesting point. I'm kind of maybe piggyback on that. Like, what is sort of like a smaller festival, like a medium-sized festival, where you think it's still like worth your while, and between the logistics and the community and things like that, it's still working.
Yeah, when I talk about the Just for Laughs, it was in the Quartier des Spectacles in Montreal. It was first year we did it. We had people on site, but like we didn't need to, so we really changed. The second year we came in with that idea of setting up like a self-managed kind of setup under a tent in the area where all the food trucks were, and then we would coach everybody to say, hey guys, at the end or during, if you need anything, there's the containers are there. You guys can put the stickers, everything is there, we'll replenish if there's missing containers and stuff. But it was really a self-managed operation. And then we'd have the community partner come by in the following morning of each day just to make sure that they empty the fridge and they come and take the food that was left by the vendors or by the concessions. And so that's an option. But like for a bigger operation, we can really mobilize like volunteers, and we can work with your volunteers and train them. We can have a manager on site and work with a group of volunteers that you already have, or recruit new volunteers specifically for that. There's really different options that we can provide.
So the bottom line is talk to Jeff.
Right, and I'll relate to the team. They're really knowledgeable about this. And I mean, we launched a squad last summer in Montreal, and we covered most summer events. I talked about the Jean Drapeau Park. We did all the events there. And then we won a prize for that. There was we've been recognized as the best initiative for reducing food waste in Montreal out of the whole summer activation. Yeah,
that's great. Thanks so much. Does anybody else have any other questions, either related to Jeff or Ottawa Tourism or Reuse Ottawa? No, I'll maybe ask the same question to Alexia. What do you think is like a good size for a festival, like with minimum amounts or maximum amounts for containers?
I think what we've been seeing in Canada and in other countries is that sometimes festivals are a bit, they'll take the step-by-step approach. So they might want to start with providing containers or cups to their volunteers. That can be a step one for 1 year, one summer. And then the next year, maybe there can be like a progressive approach where they introduce reusable containers either for the wider participants, just maybe cups and not necessarily for the food, or the opposite, they might be doing the food, not the cups. It really depends on the approach that's wanted by the organizers. But I don't think there's any restriction in terms of size, really. It just depends on the motivation as well and the desire for innovation.
We love innovation, that's for sure. Okay. Tracy, any last words you want to see me from your side in case something triggered your mind based on what was said?
No, other than reach out. Always love to hear your ideas. Always willing to give you sort of insights and into what other festivals are doing. So yeah, always there for a call. I think a few of the people on this call, I would like to say know that as well. So,
Callie, do you still have a question?
I do. I just popped it in the chat, but I was wondering, Alexia, if we could maybe connect just to talk about feasibility and what would work best.
Are you sharing the presentations, Phil? Because my email is on my slides.
Oh, perfect.
But otherwise,
okay,
I can also just put it in. You know what? I'll just put it in the chat.
Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you.
Do that for now, but
Appreciate
like Tara's team will share it, including the recording as well. I think someone asked the same question. So one way or another, you will get the whole spiel and hearing and reading about it again. And to Chase's point as well, so do reach out to us as well, whether it's like a follow-up question or just a thought. We would love to connect both in terms of discussing your concrete ideas or connecting with someone else whom we know who might be able to help. So I think, Tara, I think we're out of questions. So maybe if you want to do a wrap up.
Good. Yes, thank you so much, Phil. Un grand merci à nos invités aujourd'hui, Jean-François et Alexia. Thank you so much for the work that you're doing in the sustainability sector. It's inspiring, and sometimes it can feel overwhelming to make these changes in our events and festivals. But hearing you both speak with your vision and seeing how small steps can make a huge difference is inspiring. And OFN, we're here for our members to support any initiatives that you guys feel inspired to try in this space. Thank you again. Thank you so much to Tracy and to Phil, our community partners here, for hosting this call together with us today. And just really appreciate your time and all the information that you're sharing here. Thank you to our members for being here. We will send out the recording. Thanks to my staff for keeping me organized, and they will get all of this info out to you. And just one last reminder about our Fest Connect event on Thursday. You're all welcome, 5 to 7. And Darcy McGee's here on Spark Street, right beside our office. All right, have a great afternoon, everybody. Thank you again.
Thank you.
Thank you, cheerio.
Thank you.
Bye.